So welcome everyone to Pride in Your Roots. And I'm not going to tell you too much about it because I would like Becca to share about this because this was her idea. And when Becca asked me to participate in this, I was very excited to do so because this has been something that's been on my mind quite a bit lately, what we're going to be talking about with Dawn today and the others in this short podcast series. So Becca, kind of where did this idea for Pride in Your Roots come from?
Well, it comes from the fact it's kind of two-sided. So first, I feel like April was stolen from us. And I just want to say that kind of out loud. I just feel like now, because of the machine that Autism Month has become and that what it's become to stand for, right? It doesn't feel like it belongs to us anymore, right? And it also is sort of, for many of us, re-traumatizing. Right. It comes everything, all of the misnomers, all of the stigma and stereotypes, all of that stuff comes forward in this huge wave, right? And April. And so it's a painful time too. So it doesn't feel like it belongs to me, and that bothers me. So that's part of it. And I feel more like what I would love for April to be is more of a Pride Month, right? And for us to really celebrate autism during that month, right? And so because of that, we do have in June, we're so lucky to have gotten a day in June in Pride Month itself, right? And that's the day that actually means more to me than the entire month of April, right? Because it stands for what I want to be saying, right? And so that's part of it. And so the idea came from this idea of what could I do in order to express to the people that dare to follow me and those that stumble upon me, right? How could I express to them this piece that, like, April doesn't mean what it's supposed to mean, and that you're missing out on this piece, and we only have a day, but what could I do with that day? And then I realized that you and I do this amazing podcast, and I could take advantage of the entire month if I felt like it. And so I really, the purpose of Pride in Your Roots is that for this month, while we're supposed to be really focusing on our strengths, our skills, the things that make us amazing, right, as human beings. And it is, on June 18th, that's what we do, right? We celebrate that day. And so I'm challenging autistics out there to take this Pride Month seriously. Don't just celebrate on the 18th. Celebrate all your fellow diverse human beings, creatures, living things. But remember that all month you get to say, yeah, it's Pride Month and I'm proud of being autistic, right? That whole month. And so what we're doing for you is doing a weekly series. We're doing 4 episodes of Info Dump this month, 1 a week for you, of some of the advocates that 10 years ago, when I was a newbie to all of it, when I was stepping into my diagnosis, when I was really learning about our community for the first time, these are the people that were out there doing the stuff that inspired me to do what I do today. Right. And so that's what we're going to be doing. We're doing a history lesson for the month of June. And I want to introduce you to the advocates that were out and about out there before we had a Facebook community, before we were on the internet together, that were, they weren't able to talk to each other the way we do now. Right. They were all very much isolated in a different way at that time in trying to be an advocate, and they were fighting different battles. And I want us to talk about that this month because we need to know where we came from. Our community is becoming a culture. And as it becomes a culture, we need to understand our history. And that is what Pride in Your Roots is about. And so with that, I am going to introduce you to our first guest for this series, and that is Miss Dawn Prince-Hughes. I am so excited to have you with us today. I admire your work. I admire your passion about the things that you're passionate about. And I mostly admire what appears to me to be your bulletproof nature when it comes to the things you really care about, really stepping forward and saying the things that might shake things up just a little bit. And I love that. So I'm excited. I'm excited for you to be joining us to talk about your work that you have done, what you're doing now, and sort of what it means for you to be autistic. So yay, welcome. Doug, I know you have researched. I am ready. This is how the game plan works at InfoDump. Doug researches and he gets all planned, and I go, hey, you want to come talk to us? Okay, cool. I'll be there at the same time as you are. And so I'm here, and because I love the spontaneous part of it, right? I love that we have these natural conversations. So let's get started with those good researched questions, Doug. I'm excited for these.
Sure. Dawn, it's a privilege to talk to you. And I wanted to start out with some exciting news. In that recently award-winning filmmaker Lydia Dean Pilcher announced about acquiring the rights to your best-selling memoir, Songs of the Gorilla Nation, My Journey Through Autism, and plans to turn it into a feature film. So when the film's released, what are you hoping, the experience of people leaving the theater will be?
Well, I feel so lucky. Well, first, lucky to be here with you guys today. I love what you're doing. I'm 100% behind your whole idea. And so excited that Lydia is approaching the project in a really, truly intersectional way. This has just been a beautiful thing to work with her on, because she sees how all of these things are connected. She and I have both worked on a lot of movements, the women's movement, queer movement, spectrum movement. And they all sort of have limitations because they unconsciously sort of follow the model of the very system that they're fighting, in that they think in terms of us and them, or we need our rights, and they don't really reflect about how those rights are connected to other people's rights or the state of the world, etc. And now, of course, we've come to a point where we're realizing those models of advocacy can only go so far, that we've really got to reach out and make these networks that are more powerful together, and at base more powerful because they are using an entirely different way of looking at things. I think it was Abraham Lincoln that said, those who take the liberty of others deserve it not themselves. And I think that that's a really interesting key phrase as we look at intersectionality. About my advocacy for animals, for example. And I feel like it's a state of heart when you are living in integrity, realizing that your actions also affect other people that are downtrodden, affect a living planet, affect different, races of people. So when people come out of the theater, I hope that they sort of have that transformation of heart and realize that none of these threads by themselves is going to amount to anything until we weave them together. That's my greatest hope, and I'm really, really convinced we're gonna make progress just based on my working relationship with Lydia.
And in Songs of the Gorilla Nation, My Journey Through Autism, you've said that it's a story about how you emerged from the darkness into the beauty of your autism, which kind of makes me think about autistic joy. And what does that beauty or autistic joy look like for you?
Right. Well, I think, more recently, but sort of all along, I've had the bubbling idea that our particular kinds of sensitivity, indeed any neurodivergent sensitivity and animal sensitivity, is very shamanic in nature. Mm. And of course, everyone needs to have the feeling that their life has meaning, that who they are has purpose. And I feel like as we sort of unroll this idea that we have these sensitivities as gifts for a reason, they give us this sense of responsibility and awe, and this kind of shamanic inspiration to heal the things around us. that gives me more joy than anything I've experienced in my life. I mean, professionally, I can say that I've experienced an inordinate amount of joy. Personally, in my personal life, not so much. And I think that that's really typical for passionate advocates. Our very sensitivity, underpins a lot of damage from trauma. The great thing is it makes us passionate. It makes us, as you said, bulletproof about our commitment, but it also makes us extraordinarily vulnerable in our one-on-one relationships. So, riding on the success, the joy of my professional life, I'm trying to find ways to interject more joy in my personal life, and I really hope that comes from the film. Making more personal connections like that.
I love that you're still exploring what that means to be autistic and have your joy and have the balance, because when I teach my students, it's really, it's wrapped up in a lot of things, but essentially what I'm trying to teach them is that we deserve a balance. We deserve to have the joy that everyone else has, even if it's packaged differently. Right. And we deserve to have that joy without judgment, without criticism. Right. We get to just do it. And so what I find is that we are so hyper focused and passionate about whatever it is that we've done, and the world shifts us, I think, into making that a career, right? Because if we're not productive human beings, right, we can't just be passionate about something. It has to somehow be productive passion, right?
Right.
We lose that pure passion that comes with joy. That's just in the moment, I'm just feeling pleasure, right? Or I'm just having pure joy. And so I wish that for you. I'm so excited that you're on that journey for that, because when you get it right, when you start to bring in the joy, whatever it looks like, in small and large bits, I think you're going to feel even more empowered and fall even more in love with your autistic self.
Yeah, I really hope so. You mentioned the importance of history and looking at the personal history of people in the movement and everything. And for sure, that's helpful in terms of the goals that you have, like what's effective and so forth.
Right.
But also, what is gained and what is lost, and how do you live your life in a sustainable way that allows you to be a lifetime advocate and have joy. That is really, a new territory. I feel like we have not even begun to explore.
I mean, it's something that I don't want to take up all our time because I know I could do this stuff, but I'm currently working, the research that I'm working on right now is on autistic quality of life. So what are the components of life that give us quality of life? And so, our special interests are part of that, but I am already seeing how huge a part for us as autistic people, nature and animals play. Like they are, in a sense that it's not like a, I don't know, oh, maybe I could have a cat. It's like, no, I need to, right? I have to have animal time. I have to have time outside, or I can't create that balance. Right. And I think it's the place that I think we're headed in terms of our next level of understanding, where autism sits.
I just wrote a paper about the idea that far from being neurodivergent, we and animals tend to think in the same kinds of ways, in the integrated, holographic, connected, completely connected ways. And that in fact, what we call neurotypicality is really quite unusual on the planet and perhaps even in the universe.
And very much a human character. It's like you don't see it anywhere else. That I will have to come find your paper and read it because I'm excited. It's very much overlapping with what I'm doing now myself.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But please go back to your questions. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Dawn, Becca was just kind of talking about quality of life. And for so many autistics, the connection between animals is such an important one. So I know you have so much experience working with gorillas. Are there lessons from gorillas that maybe you've applied to kind of improve the kind of quality of your life?
Right. Well, it goes back to the whole connection question. They were sort of, I guess, a gateway drug because, spending time with them, it became so obvious so quickly that they were no different from me in all of the most important basic ways. Not any different from human beings in all the most important basic ways. And then, of course, if you accept, as many people will, now that apes, gorillas, bonobos, chimps are persons, that they qualify as persons by any philosophical definition, you think, okay, well, there is an animal that I just accepted as a person. And now where do I draw the line? Well, I don't know exactly, but I don't think that maybe that's the right question. Does there have to be a line? And, in these complex ways that we interact, why do we have to have a hard line, a wall between us and these other animals? I had here at my home a rescue sanctuary for many years for farm animals. And just once again, after my experience with the gorillas, it was obvious to me that they all were basically the same kinds of persons moving through the world. And so that once again, I was erasing lines. I think that's the best thing that I've learned from the gorillas, is to constantly question what is dividing me from other sentient beings.
Mm,
Why am I allowing it to divide me from other sentient beings? And can I change that?
mm,
Because everyone wins. There is no loss to that. There are no downsides when you include just basically respect other sentient beings. Everyone wins. It's good for you, good for the planet, good for them. So yeah, that would be the best, biggest lesson that I learned from the gorillas.
Now you came out with another book, I believe back in 2013, called
Mhm.
Circus of Souls: How I Discovered We Are All Freaks Passing as Normal, which I love that title. I'm so jealous I didn't come up with that myself, but very impressed. What was the connection from that book to Songs of the Gorilla Nation?
Well, it was really overwhelming. I was so happy for the success of the book, but it really was sort of a circus. I mean, it's, modern publicity has replaced the traditional freak show. I knew that I was going to go out on the road and sort of be a spectacle. I mean, that's really
mhm,
what would initially draw people, I think, to come in and see me. And so I decided, as I do with everything, I process everything with writing. And I just started writing my thoughts down about, what a circus it was and how bizarre, and how persistent it is to go and see what we might think of as the postmodern other.
right.
But as I did a lot of research and experienced these publicity events, what I realized is that it really is not about the other. It's about the deep self. People come to
Mm,
see people that are odd or wounded or twisted, whether visually, that's a visual thing, or a life experience kind of thing, because they see themselves in it. It's not about othering, I don't think. It's about identification, and that's a major shift in thinking. So it was just really eye-opening for me to go around the country and indeed the world and see that no matter where I went, people were absolute freaks, absolute freaks. And the only difference was the degree to which they were successful in hiding it.
mm,
DSM is basically full of descriptions of people that can't hide it.
mhm.
And that's it. And I think when we come to terms with that, we're gonna get a lot farther along.
I cannot even tell you how much I agree with you. I'm like sitting here shaking my head and wanting to explode because it is that's people ask me what it is that I do. They, what do you do? Right. How do you make that impact? Right. And so there's lots of different ways that I make that impact. But what I mostly do is give people permission to be themselves. That's it.
Yes.
Like the backbone of telling my whole story, the backbone of all the teaching that I do, all the writing that I do is you can't just be, I'm giving you permission. Go ahead, go make a mistake, go fail, go fall, go get back up, right? Here, you have permission, right? And that is what I feel like is holding us back as human beings, right? From our growth as human beings. It's like, why are you waiting? Who gave the people who are giving you permission authority to give you the permission, right? Like I go that far back with it. And I often say that when I'm speaking, like, I hope my permission made you feel better, but know that you didn't need it, right? Like who am I to stand up here and tell you it's okay? And to begin people on that path of questioning. Right.
That's
like, where did these thoughts and beliefs come from? Are they really mine or are they somebody else's? Right.
Yes.
And so I think it's such a beautiful idea to show that to people through the animal world. I feel like they begin to get it in that way. It's not like looking in a mirror exactly. Right. But it's fascinating. I mean, like they don't ask permission. They just be.
They just are. Yes, they just are.
Yeah.
We have really lost. I mean, it's really the basis of all our neuroses, right?
Yeah.
But we just can't be animals. It's ridiculous. And I love the idea that compassionate permission is the basis for perfect leadership.
Oh, I so agree. Totally.
Good on you, sister.
Back at you.
So when when the film for Songs of the Gorilla Nation comes out, you're going to be, I imagine there's going to be a lot of media requests. You're going to be thrown back into the spotlight.
Kill me now.
I mean, how are you? I mean, are you preparing yourself for that? And like, where do you see like we are in 2022, kind of the intersection of autism and the media?
Well, prepare. I feel like that's like, can you prepare to give birth to a flaming porcupine?
Right.
Probably. Probably not. It's very difficult to front load the energy that is demanded in those situations. So I generally focus on recovery, which I don't know, after this maybe 10 years in Fiji. I don't know. But what I do really like, and I hope I get to participate in, is this new sort of organic approach to media that you guys are so beautifully demonstrating right now, where it's not the formulaic, same questions that never go off script. No one's ever truly real. They're never vulnerable. They never cry. I mean, I really want to get into the guts of it. It's time for that. And for people not just to self-represent, and like you said, take away that power. You have permission to do that. To just do it, and you're just doing it. I really want to participate in that. And I think that that's going to appeal again to that inner freak in everyone.
Yes.
They see themselves in all kinds of people telling the truth about the experience of being an animal on this planet.
And it's so interesting to me because people hide that freak part of themselves, whatever part it is. But if we all have it and we all normalize being, having something about us that's freakish, right? That normalizes the freakiness. And now all that stigma goes away, right?
Yes.
The minute that we all admit that there's something about each one of us that we all try to hide, right? Whatever it is. And I love seeing people step into their authentic selves and watch that disappear, because it's this really beautiful experience to watch people do that. And I'm hoping, I would love to see that. And I felt like COVID kind of set that in fast forward. Like it took
Yeah.
away so many of the rules that we had about going to work and for what hours and how you dressed at work, how you presented and showed up, and hearing, you know, oh, you have dogs, I can hear your dogs, right?
Yes.
Like we got our humanness back from it.
Yes.
And
The
I hope that
concepts.
it's like a wave going forward and that people continue to reclaim their humanness.
Yes, I absolutely do too. I think you're really spot on about those rules just having to go out the window. And what a great thing to see where people live. Who
Right?
who's around them?
Oh,
What, you
look,
know,
you
what-
have a
what's their
kitchen. You
you
big
know,
deal. We all have a kitchen, right?
and to hear their kids crying. This was a really weird story I wanted to share. When Random House was considering taking songs with Gorilla Nation, they had this big, huge meeting in this fancy boardroom around this huge table. You know, it could have been intimidating, but you know, I'm just myself. So I got up there and they were asking me questions, and I started to tear up. And I looked over at my agent, and she was like, and so I kind of pulled it together and thought, well, that's really weird. And then later she said, you know, they test you how you're going to come out on media. Like, are you going to be able to hold it together? Are you going to be able to speak with authority and so forth? And I look back at that as one of the saddest moments in my professional life. And I did go out on the road and cry and get angry and be passionate and be vulnerable. And like you said, it gave people permission to do that as well. And it rippled out. And now, of course, it's great because I feel like I'm at a point in my career where I can just do those things. You know?
It's not even that too. It comes with age too. I feel like I'm there too. Like as we get a little bit, it's like, you know what? I'm the old one now. I got to say what I have to say. I'm just gonna say it.
Right. You finally understand the screw it attitude. I'm
Yes.
just gonna say what I want to say. So, yeah, I find that really refreshing.
But so interesting. And that's exactly why I wanted to do this. So for your experience, so like frame that for a second. Like when Dawn's reading this book and it comes out and she's one of a handful. I mean, now we have so many memoirs, right? She's one of a handful of people who's managed to get her memoir about autism published, right? So it's like a big deal. And she's a woman. Oh my God, because we were still lacking at that time. We were barely talking about women on the spectrum, barely. So let's reference and frame all of this for you. And so now you've shared this vulnerable piece and you're starting to do these meetings. And the lesson that we're given from neurotypical society is don't show people who you are. Don't show people your real feelings. Don't tell them, don't be direct. Don't say what you mean. Don't do all, we were taught that was the setup. And now the media is opposite. Now be raw, be yourself, go on camera without makeup, blah blah blah, right? And it's like now you're gonna like blow up and succeed because it's a comfortable place for you, right? It's like I could never have succeeded in the environment that you pushed through. I would never have made it. Like as thick as my skin is from growing up in New York, I have heard stories about the boardrooms that folks have sat in where they're the only autistic and the things that they've had to listen to in those early days.
I don't think you would have pulled through that.
But I don't know, you know, it's just, I feel lucky that, you know, I had people come before me for that because I don't know that I would have made it through that piece. And I don't think that you guys get enough credit for being out there. I mean, it was a real, you guys were taken advantage of a lot. We weren't paid. Right? It's all the stuff we talk about now that we've fought for the last 10 years. Like I've spent most of my career fighting to get paid to do what they want us to do. Right. And you came before that. And so I think if you are a newer advocate, I am just going to stand on my soapbox for 5 minutes and say, do yourself a favor and do a history lesson. Go back. Read the old memoirs. Yes, you are going to find language in them that infuriates you. How dare they say those things, right? Because we weren't there yet, right? We didn't get there yet. And that's important as an advocate to understand. Wherever we are now in advocacy, 10 years from now, someone's going to be pissed at you for saying what it is you said, right?
Yes.
So it's time to go back. It's time to take some effort to respect the people that came before us and understand where our culture came from. Who were the first people who risked that vulnerability, right? And then had to play the game, had to go to the conferences with their agent and sign the books and do all the things that are painfully uncomfortable and spoon stealers for us. Right?
Yeah, I was in fact just talking to my fiance last night. She and I have known each other from my Seattle days. We've known each other over 30 years. And she's spectrum as well. And we were talking about, the short memory of modern neurotypical life and all that. And this assumption that if you survived, you're whole. Like, we were broken. We were broken. We still are wrestling with fallout from things that happened to us in, as toddlers or whatever. It's
right. I mean, that doesn't go away. And that's what we know about trauma now, right? And we've only begun to open the can of worms that is trauma for autistic people that comes directly from growing up in a neurotypical society.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's where we're going. But I think about your book coming out and I go, man, I can think of like 3 other women that were out there at that time. And I can think of like, 3, you guys. We can go on Facebook right now and you can search autistic advocate and you will have like 1 million pages to follow. 1 million.
Yes.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So I can't express enough to me how important it is to me that before I'm done being an advocate, that the advocates that came behind me understand who came before me. Right. It's so important to me. And so I really thank you for coming on and being part of the series. And Doug, I thank you, man, for saying, yes, Beck, we'll do that. We will.
Absolutely. Because, like Becca was just talking about the, page after page on social media of advocates that you can easily find. It's so easy to find people now. And I'm just wondering advice that you have for them, like moving forward, because I feel like wherever they're at, like they certainly didn't get there on their own. Like there was so much foundation that you and others laid for them. So kind of what would be your advice to kind of those younger advocates right now, moving forward?
Yeah, I think I would sort of bring it full circle to a lot of the things we said about learning your history so that you understand context, understanding what advocacy looks like sustainably over a lifetime so that you can be good to yourself, because you've got to do that. You're advocating for yourself because you're worthy. So you have to live like you are worthy. And that's such a hard lesson for people who have been, treated badly and marginalized. And also I would say, for me, the third part of that triad would really be to, again, going full circle, looking at our integrity. What are we doing in our lives that we could do better? Because we're asking other people to do these things. It's imperative that we do the same thing. I'm lucky to have people in my life that remind me to be honest. They keep me honest, and they call me out when I do things that I shouldn't be doing or that don't resonate with my highest self. So, look at what you're doing for convenience or momentary pleasure or, whatever. How is that impacting other sentient beings, the animals that suffer for your burger, or the person that lives next door that could use some help because they're going through whatever. All these things are part of a deeper integrity that I think we're all gonna need to help each other achieve as we go forward. So that would be my advice, those 3 things.
Something that I read that you said that I think relates to the way I feel about a lot of advocacy on social media is that in which you said that anger often stems from embarrassment and humor is a natural fear response. So do you see humor as something important in relation to advocacy efforts?
I really think it's crucial. It's just, the old tired adage, you've got to be able to laugh at yourself. I mean, it's really true. I love the kind of humor that, there's some masters out there who don't have to put anybody down to be funny,
Mhm.
because the things they say are things that virtually anyone on the planet can relate to. That's the kind of humor that I really would love to start bringing in, along with joy and all these things that are all, very much related. And I'd like to see the mean humor, the kind of victim humor, like, there's always a victim when something's funny. Obviously, I'd like to see that go the way of the dinosaurs. So yeah, and again, the permission piece. I think laughing at ourselves, making light of our foibles, copping to our mistakes, and trying to be more lighthearted about that. I think those are absolutely foundational to our success.
Dawn, I wish we lived closer together. We would go hang out and have coffee.
Yes, we would. We have so much to talk about.
It's really, it's like, I don't know how we got here. I kind of know how we got here, but really the humanness of being autistic got taken away from us somewhere. Like the whole robot fallacy and the non-empathy fallacy all created it somehow that can't be autistic and also be human and have other human conditions and other human foibles and other, you know what I mean? And we have all those feelings and all of those abilities and all of that stuff. And just the fact that we may process it all differently, right? Doesn't make our human condition any different, right? And so I laugh at myself often. I think I would cry if I didn't laugh at myself so often.
Well, yeah, for sure. For sure.
Absolutely.
Also, I wanted to just kind of jump back a moment while it's in my head.
Yeah.
And say that I am really committed as I go forward in my career to revisiting things that I've said and written. When the movie comes out, I'll have to do a rewrite of songs.
Yeah.
And already friends have pointed out things I've said in there that I am horrified by.
Right. But that was the language that we had.
Yeah,
Right.
Sure. I can't beat myself up, but on the other hand, I do think it's important to make, like a public commitment.
Mm-hmm.
I will continue to grow and, uh, learn things and revisit my thoughts and watch the language that I use, kind of just always be self-reflective. And just as I feel like the people coming up need to learn their history, I feel like it's so valuable for me to learn from the people coming up now, like where their vision is, like how much farther they're able to see and be
Right.
open, not stay stuck.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I think and I think as an advocate, it's our obligation, it's a responsibility to stay up to date about the stuff that we're doing, but also to acknowledge when we make mistakes or when we have learned better. That's my favorite. I say it all the time because it makes me feel better. When you know better, do better is what I say. So like, don't be mad at yourself for when you didn't know, but when you do know, if you don't do better, you could be mad at yourself all you want then, right?
Absolutely.
That to me is the difference.
Yes, being forgiving of yourself and other people that are honestly trying. I still make mistakes about animals. I mean, me.
Right. I mean, we all do it. And it's important. It's part of our humanness, right? The media used to take all that stuff out. We used to never see people's bloopers and all of that stuff, right? And now they let us see it. And so I think we're all in our own way really headed to this place where we just want to be able to be again, to just.
Yeah.
Dawn,
Yes.
you were mentioning about looking forward, and so I was wondering, maybe looking forward for autistics and the autistic community. What do you kind of hope that looks like in 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 years?
Right. Yeah. Well, so exciting. I really hope that we just in general start focusing on people's gifts. What are our strengths that we can bring together as a global community to ensure that everyone is operating at their optimum level for maximum benefit for all living things. I mean, isn't that sort of where we've always wanted to head to? I mean, I think what is exciting is that now we're at a point where it's sort of do or die. Like we have got to get it together. That's, I mean, in some respects, I guess you could feel like it's a depressing and scary time, but also it's an exciting time because we must change. We must change. We must start seeing people as more complex. We've got to start bringing out the best in each other. And I really see that, you know, over the next 100 years, that's going to be the theme. As we were talking about earlier, the shamanic component of spectrum. By the way, I use the word spectrum as like, because I think of a spectrum of light, a spectrum of dimensions, a spectrum of being. So I kind of resonate with that word. But as I think about spectrum people being in a shamanic role, I really hope that we can lead the way toward that by giving people permission, by using compassion and humor and sensitive ways of being to lead people by example. I just think that's really, really exciting. And I'm planning to live long enough to see a good chunk of that unfold.
Well, Dawn, it was an honor to talk with you. Thanks for joining us and kicking off Pride in your roots. And Becca, you want to close this out for us?
Sure. I am just, I don't know, I have like goosebumps and all kinds of things because I feel like anybody who really knows me or follows me and the work that I'm doing can now understand where it came from. That's how I feel, right? Like these are the people that influenced me, that gave me the courage to say, wait, I have a story. Wait, I can do something about this. I can make a difference. And so Dawn, thank you for being here so much. And I really appreciate it. And I'm so excited for the rest of the interviews. We're going to be introducing you to some really talented, amazing, fun, just strong, resilient people this month. And so I hope that you guys will tune in and not miss out on them.
Thank you guys so much. It was a real privilege, a great conversation, really fun.
Really fun for us as well. Thanks so much.